stories, guys. Today we're going to be learning all about the Caribbean coral reef. Now let's get straight to it.
Come along, guys. So that is the Caribbean coral reef in the location of the Caribbean Sea, Bahamas and Gulf of Mexico.
Now let's go look at a species of fish that live in the Caribbean coral reef. It is a blue tang, also known as a Paracarpus hippicus. Come on. Now this is a species of blue tang. A species is a population of organisms consisting of similar individuals which can breed together. This is a population of blue tang. A population is a group of the same species living in an area. This is a community of blue tang. It is a group of actually or potentially interacting species living in the same location. This is an ecosystem. An ecosystem consists of all the living and non-living things in an environment.
Okay, now time to take a look at the producers that inhabit these coral reefs. Okay, so the first producer is phytoplankton. Phytoplankton are microscopic marine algae. They provide food for a wide range of sea creatures. They are similar to terrestrial plants in that they contain chlorophyll. The next producer is zooanthellae, also known as Symbiodinium. Zooanthellae is a unicellular golden brown algae that live in either the water column as a plankton or symbiotically inside the tissue of other organisms. The third producer that lives here is seagrass, also known as Halophilia thorus. Seagrass are the only flowering plants that are able to live underwater. They grow in sediment on the sea floor and have elongate leaves and buried root-like structures.
Diving back into the Caribbean, we have our primary consumers. To start us off, we have the sea sponge, also known as Philomphophia. They consume detritus, plankton, viruses and bacteria. Next, we have the Atlantic blue tang, also known as Paracanthrius hepatus. They consume tiny food like marine algae, brine shrimp, bits of seaweed and other small microorganisms. Next, we have the queen conch. They feed mainly on algae, seagrass and plankton, but as growing adults, they develop a long snout that allows them to select and consume bigger pieces of algae.
Alright, now to take a look at the big apex predators of the marine ecosystem. The first apex predator is the tiger shark, also known as the Galeocardia cuvia. Tiger sharks have the widest diet out of all species of shark. They prey on fish, seals, squid, turtles, sea snakes, crabs, seabirds, rays, dolphins and smaller reef sharks. The second apex predator of the marine ecosystem is the hammerhead shark, also known as the Cypheridae. The hammerhead diet includes invertebrates such as crabs, lobsters, squid and octopus, bony fish such as sardines, sea catfishes, toadfish, porgies, grunts, jacks, croakers and groupers.
This is a food web for the Caribbean coral reefs, showing the producers and the predators in the environment. We're now going to look at interspecific and intraspecific competition. To start us off, we have sponges versus coral. Sponges and coral are fighting for space. Competitive interactions between sponges and coral can often result in overgrowth of corals. Some sponges, known as evacuating sponges, have been known to physically damage corals and the reef structure. Some factors that can cause sponges to want more space is high nutrients, low algae competition. The sponges can indeed outcompete and overtake corals, the dominant life form. Now to look at an example of an intraspecific competition. An example is the competition of hermit crabs fighting for homes/shells. They regularly grow and need new upcoming shells, but the large population of them in the Caribbean coral reef leaves some competing for bigger shells. Some hermit crabs will rip the crabs out of their shells if they feel threatened by them and believe they are going to take their home. Some hermit crabs will dig up molters, which literally means eat them alive. Some hermit crabs are first scavengers, so they will readily eat their own kind.
Now we're taking a look in at symbiosis. The relationship between coral and zooanthellae is that coral provides protection as well as compounds needed for photosynthesis to occur. This relationship between the two is a mutualistic relation because, one, they are both benefiting from the relationship. A parasitic relationship is between fish lice and small fish hosts. The fish can be killed if there are too many fish lice attached to it. The lice benefit from the fish by feeding off of their bodily fuel.
Now let's take a quick look at some invasive species in the Caribbean coral reef. To start us off, we have a lionfish, also known as Pteriosus. The Bahamas has taken the initiative to fix the issue of growing population of lionfish, and the Lionfish Task Force are in charge to document, collect and remove lionfish from the Caribbean waters. Lionfish will then be relocated and distributed vastly so they are not able to populate as quick as they do. Lionfish are an invasive species that threatens the well-being of corals and marine ecosystems. The populations keep rapidly expanding and putting marine ecosystems at risk. Next, we have our orange cap coral, also known as Tabascaria concenia. Orange cap coral has been known to compete with other benthic invertebrates for space, putting native species such as sponges and corals at risk. In Brazil, they have taken the initiative to start up a program called Project Coral Sol, where they will be removing the orange cap coral species and relocating them so that there is more space for other native plants to grow.
Now we're looking at some natural events and disasters that affect the Caribbean. This includes large and powerful waves from hurricanes and cyclones that can break apart or flatten large coral heads. Scattering their fragments, a single storm seldom kills off an entire colony, but slow-growing corals may be overgrown by algae before they can recover. Reefs also are threatened by long periods of exceptionally low tides that leave shallow water coral heads exposed, damaging reefs. Corals exposed during daylight hours are subjected to the most ultraviolet radiation, which can overheat and dry out the coral's tissues. Corals may become so physiologically stressed that they begin to expel their symbiotic zooxanthellae, which leads to bleaching and, in many cases, death.
These storms that occur leave a negative impact on the Caribbean coral reef and can result in coral bleaching and coral breaking down into fragments, killing them and their natural habitat. Now let's have a look at some other human impacts that affect the Caribbean coral reef. To start us off, we have coastal development. It's caused the most damage to coral reefs and the population of fish and other marine creations in the area. Humankind build piers over reefs, destroying nesting sites, and tourists have snorkeled in reef areas, damaging the natural coral. Snorkeling can change the saltiness of the water, stir up sediment, and change water flow. Another major factor that is harmful towards the Caribbean is pollution, littering, which causes harmful toxins that can come from the plastic. Many sea creatures may consume the rubbish that floats in the water after it was dumped into landfill. All of these changes in coral environment can cause the coral to be stressed out and expel symbiotic algae that live in their tissue and then turn them completely white. This is known as coral bleaching.
What you can do to help the coral reef is always put your rubbish away. Be aware of what sunscreen products you're using. Minimise your use of fertilisers and reduce the stormwater runoff.